Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to provide you with a brief in-depth analysis on how Miralem Pjanic played a key role in Barcelona's midfield as they comfortably defeated Juventus 2-0 in Champions League action. When we break it all down and first we look at the board, we have both sides in a 4-2-3-1, and surprisingly enough, they both look to attack in a similar way. They wanted to attack with 5 men and they ended up dropping into more of a back 3, which ultimately had their shape shifted into more of a 3-2-5. When you look at Juventus, they had Juan Cuadrado pushing forward and Kulusevski coming in a bit narrow, and at times he was swapping positions with Dembele, as when you would see Dembele shift out to the right touchline, Kulusevski would move into more of a narrow position ahead of Jordi Alba or Lenglet, or look to shift in between the lines to get on the ball, and you would see Cuadrado pushing forward on the overlap, whereas on the opposite flank they had Chiesa hugging the touchline, looking to receive the ball in 1v1 situations, but Barcelona did a very good job of having Dembele track back to ensure that it was a 1v2 battle, and ultimately Juventus couldn't switch balls out to Chiesa on a consistent basis. Meanwhile, when we look to Barcelona, rather than having their right back pushing forward, they had Jordi Alba pushing down that left-hand side, with Sergio Roberto keeping a deep, narrow position to ensure that Dembele could hug the touchline on the right side of the pitch, and that's where you would see Chiesa dropping deeper to protect Danilo to ensure that it was a 1v2 for Dembele as well. On Barcelona's left-hand side, with Jordi Alba pushing forward, we witnessed Pedri initially adopting more narrow positions just ahead of Cuadrado and Dembele, and that's how you would see Barcelona shift the game. So when you look at that 5-man attack, it's Alba and Dembele operating in those wider areas, Pedri a bit narrow, Griezmann occupying the center backs, and Messi with the freedom to drop deeper and look to get on the ball. With both sides adopting a similar attacking shape, it was no surprise that they did the same without the ball. They both dropped off into 2 banks of 4. Barcelona were a bit more lackadaisical with their pressing, and on the rare occasion we did see Griezmann and Messi lead the line forward to press Bonucci and Dembele, and when they did, it was very simple. You would have Dembele and Pedri pressing the Juventus fullbacks, and then you would have De Jong and Pjanic stepping into the path of Rabiot and Bentancur. Meanwhile, when we look to Juventus's 4-4-2 out of possession, they did a much better job of trying to ensure that Pjanic couldn't get on the ball when he dropped between the center backs, and we would have one of the center forwards in Morata or Dembele looking to step into the path of Pjanic to ensure that he couldn't get on the ball, and it ultimately created a 3v2 in that zone. And if you had Morata and Dembele stepping forward to apply pressure to the Barcelona center backs, then that's when you would see Rabiot and Bentancur step into the path of Pjanic and De Jong. Ideally, if Juventus didn't have Morata and Dembele stepping forward to the Barcelona center backs, then you would see them shift into more of a hexagonal shape to ensure that De Jong and Pjanic couldn't get on the ball. You would have Morata and Dembele not stepping into the path of Araujo and Lenglet, but blocking off the passing lane into the path of De Jong and Pjanic, and then you would see Barcelona's narrow midfield bank of 4 push forward to apply pressure to the Barcelona midfield duo. But when we shift to Pjanic, what we end up seeing was that in the opening half, he played a key role with De Jong in that midfield zone, and in the second half, with De Jong moving to center back, it was Pjanic often covering for Busquets and offering penetration and great skill to help Barcelona push forward. Initially, we see Dembele picking up the ball ahead of that Barcelona midfield bank, and he tries to play a quick 1-2 around De Jong with Kulusevski backed into Alba, but De Jong does a good job of intercepting Kulusevski's return pass and dropping it into Pedri. If we focus on Pjanic, what we end up seeing is Dembele sliding a ball to Cuadrado, which pulls out Pedri, and Cuadrado splitting De Jong, stepping to Bentancur, and Alba stepping to Kulusevski. But Cuadrado lets the ball roll across his body, and this is where we see Pjanic beginning to shift across to provide cover. Pjanic steps into the loose ball, and that leads to a Messi chance. Minutes later, it's Cuadrado receiving the ball on the right touchline, and we see Dembele and Kulusevski swapping roles, with Dembele darting off Alba, and that is tracked by Pedri and Lenglet. And as Cuadrado takes his touch across Alba, this is where we see Frenkie de Jong beginning to shift across, and Cuadrado's fizz pass for Kulusevski ultimately is intercepted by the Dutchman. There was a time where Bentancur was able to split Messi and Pjanic stepping to apply pressure for Rabiot, and this is where De Jong should step to apply pressure, but Kulusevski's position between the lines forces the Barcelona midfielder to hold his position. Rabiot slides a first-time ball across De Jong for Kulusevski, but the Dutchman recovers well to make a great sliding tackle to halt his run. If we focus back on Pjanic, we see Kulusevski picking up a loose ball from Cuadrado's tackle on Pedri, and he slides the ball forward to Dybala, breaking ahead of De Jong, but Pjanic reads it well and comes across to sweep up danger and win the ball off Dybala. We witness Bentancur ahead of Griezmann's pressure, splitting both Barcelona forwards, as well as Dembele and Pjanic stepping to Rabiot for Kulusevski, which pulls out Araujo. And we instantly see Pjanic shifting over to provide additional cover as Kulusevski receives the ball, and Pjanic ends up sweeping up the loose touch as Kulusevski gets by Araujo to help Barcelona regain possession. When we look to the second half, we witness Bonucci poking a ball across Griezmann for Bentancur, and we see Pjanic shifting over to Rabiot, and that's when Busquets should be stepping to Bentancur. However, Busquets is caught yards away from the Uruguayan, but when Bentancur does receive the ball, Pjanic instantly steps in towards his path and covers for Busquets to win possession. Minutes later, we witness Miralem stepping forward with the ball towards half, and we see Pjanic shifting to his left to help Busquets block the passing lane to Dybala between the lines. And this forces Miralem to change his preferred passing option in Dybala to play the pass for Morata, dropping off De Jong into the halfway circle, but Pjanic steps into that pass to block it. There was a time where Dembele and Roberto have Kulusevski trapped in the corner applying pressure, and Pjanic locates that Danilo is the sole passing outlet for Kulusevski if he wants to play out of the back. So the Juventus midfielder clears the ball into the path of Danilo, but Pjanic reads it well and steps into the ball to help Barcelona retain possession. And even when we look to key moments towards the end of that game, you have Miralem stepping forward into Barca's half and taking his touch across Busquets, but as Miralem skips by Busquets, he overruns the ball moving forward, and Pjanic is able to step in to poke the ball away from the Juventus center back and ultimately get fouled, which results in a sending off. And when we look to one final example, it's Messi stepping to apply pressure to Bonucci while blocking off the passing lane to Artur, and Ansu Fati's pressure on Danilo leaves McKennie as the sole spare man in Juventus' midfield. But as Bonucci sets himself to play that pass in towards the path of McKennie, Pjanic is already shifting towards the ball's destination and subsequently intercepts the loose pass in the midfield zone, which eventually leads to the Barcelona penalty. And when we look to how Pjanic was able to influence the game moving forward, his ability to receive the ball in space ahead of the Juventus midfield bank and split those defensive and midfield lines got his teammates into good positions to push forward. When you look to the opening stages of that game, we witnessed De Jong nodding the ball back down to the edge of the box for Pjanic, who chests the ball ahead of Chiesa and Morata and drops the ball across Danilo's challenge into the box to guide it across Bonucci for Griezmann, who ends up smashing a volleyed effort off the post. If we focus on Pjanic's ability to play penetrative passes, we witness Busquets squaring the ball to Pjanic in Juve's half, and while he is shifting centrally, he can play the ball wide out to Dembele, but he opts to play reverse ball between Chiesa and Rabiot for Griezmann ahead of Bonucci, and that ultimately results in an opportunity for Barcelona. But while Griezmann and Messi fail to combine successfully in a tight space, you witness the ball being dropped off back to Pjanic, who slides it out to Pedri ahead of Cuadrado, and that creates another 2v1 situation with Alba on the overlap, but his cross for Messi is cleared by Bonucci. The other key element to Pjanic's influence in this game was his ability to evade the press. We can look to a time where Alba slides the ball across Chiesa, and that's when you see Dybala stepping to apply pressure, but also aware of Pjanic playing a back pass, so he wanted to cut it off. But when Alba plays that ball into the path of Pjanic, we also witness Bentancur stepping forward, but Pjanic does well to stab the ball first time around the Uruguayan for Busquets in between the lines. If we look to another example, we witness Lenglet splitting Dybala and Morata for Pjanic in the halfway circle, which forces Bentancur to step forward to apply pressure late. But Pjanic easily evades Bentancur's pressure on the half turn, and he pokes the ball to Busquets, who ultimately slides it forward to Pedri. If we shift back to Pjanic's ability to break lines, we witness Messi receiving the ball in the right channel ahead of Danilo, and this is where we see Pjanic approaching the box unmarked and Ansu Fati running across Rabiot's shoulder into right half space. And while Messi awaits Chiesa's pressure with Danilo, he squares the ball to Pjanic, whose first time split Rabiot and Chiesa despite Morata's challenge for Ansu Fati in right half space. And when we look to one final example, it's Sergio Roberto playing his pass across McKennie for Pjanic, who takes his touch across Bentancur, and he ends up splitting Bentancur and McKennie to find Messi in a pocket of space to break at the Juve backline. Hi everybody, thanks for watching, and subscribe here for your latest tactical analysis and daily commentary on the Interview show. And if that wasn't enough, don't forget you could find more organic, unfiltered soccer/football analysis on the Interviews podcast, the best soccer/football podcast in the world, available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and any Android apps on your Android devices.